Have you ever left a really long meeting feeling just physically drained? Like because you had to force every single word out just to be understood.
Oh, yeah. It is honestly the worst.
Right. You feel like your professional expertise is being totally overlooked simply because, well, you were asked to repeat yourself one too many times. Your brilliant insights end up, trapped behind this wall of static.
It's incredibly frustrating to experience that disconnect because you know the material inside and out, but the delivery mechanism, the literal physical act of speaking, is creating a barrier between you and your audience.
Welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. Today, we are taking on a mission that is specifically curated for you. We are unpacking the actual science and strategy behind improving your speaking clarity in professional
It's
settings.
going to be a good one.
Yeah, we have a really fascinating stack of sources for this. We are pulling from Professor Alex's 2026 Scientific Guide to Clarity, pronunciation charts from Pronunciation Studio, some detailed manuals on connected speech, and even expert vocal warm-up routines.
And the central theme across all of this is pretty wild. We basically need to stop agonizing over our vocabulary and we'll start looking at the literal mechanics of sound production.
Exactly.
We often fall into this trap of conflating fluency with clarity. It's so easy to think that just because we can rapidly pull advanced vocabulary from our brains, our mouths are naturally just keeping up.
Which they aren't usually.
Right. Fluency, which is the speed of cognitive retrieval, and clarity, which is the physical precision of your articulators, they're two completely different systems.
And looking at a 2023 study in the Journal of Business Communication, assuming fast vocabulary retrieval equals physical clarity comes with a massive cost.
A huge cost.
Yeah, they introduced this concept of listener fatigue. It shows that audiences actually use 30% more cognitive energy processing unclear speech.
30% is a lot of wasted brain power.
Right. Think about the friction that creates in a boardroom. If your boss or like a major client is burning 30% more energy just trying to decode the syllables coming out of your mouth, they do not have the cognitive bandwidth left to appreciate the strategic value of your ideas.
They are actively working just to parse the data. They're squinting, leaning in, asking themselves, wait, did they say the budget was 15,000 or 50,000?
Oh, that is the worst feeling.
And by the time they decode the sentence, you've already moved on to the next slide,
Ah,
which leads to the dreaded repetition fatigue. When someone has to keep asking you to repeat yourself, it subtly undermines your professional authority, regardless of how competent you actually are.
I've seen that happen so many times. The presenter starts sweating, the room gets really tense, and the whole message is just lost. But wait, I want to push back on something here.
Sure, go ahead.
When we think of someone who is highly proficient in a language, we usually picture them flying through their sentences. Isn't speaking quickly the ultimate sign of being a fluent, native-level speaker?
It's an easy assumption to make, definitely. But speed is actually the enemy of clarity, especially under pressure.
Really? Speed is the enemy.
Absolutely. When professionals step into a high-stakes environment, nervousness triggers a biological fight-or-flight response. Your adrenaline spikes, and the brain's instinct is to, well, get through the exposure as fast as possible.
Just run away from the danger.
Right. And this biological acceleration triggers a phenomenon called vowel compression.
Okay, so what is physically happening in the mouth during vowel compression?
Well, think about what a vowel actually is. Unlike a consonant, which is made by, blocking airflow, a vowel is created by holding the mouth, tongue, and jaw in very specific, open spatial targets.
Like a shapes.
Yes, exactly. And English relies heavily on the distinct length and shape of these vowels.
Yeah.
When you rush, your jaw literally doesn't have the microseconds required to drop and hit those targets. The muscle movement is cut short.
So it just shrinks.
Yeah, a complex long vowel shrinks. So the long E in a word like cheap doesn't have time to fully form. The jaw stays tight, and it compresses into the short I of chip.
Oh, wow. So cheap becomes chip. It sounds like playing a piano piece as fast as humanly possible.
That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, like if you just mash the keys together without giving each note its full depression and release, it stops being music. It just turns into noise instead of music.
Exactly. This raises an important question, though. If we conceptually know what we want to say, why is it so physically difficult to just hit the right notes?
Yeah. Why is it?
It comes down to the fact that speaking isn't just brain work. It is profound body work. Producing speech requires the precise, rapid-fire coordination of over 100 muscles in the face, throat, and respiratory system.
Over 100. That's insane.
It is. And for anyone speaking a second language, those muscles are already highly trained. Our native languages give us a default muscle memory that actively fights against the new phonetic shapes required by a different language.
So, if our native language physically hardwires our facial muscles, then it inherently shapes our rhythm too, right?
Apparently.
Because our sources point out a fundamental difference in how languages handle rhythm. They divide them into syllable-timed and stress-timed categories.
And this distinction is the absolute secret to understanding English rhythm. Languages like Spanish or French or Cantonese, they are primarily syllable-timed.
Meaning what, exactly?
Mechanically, it means the speaker gives roughly equal duration, weight, and muscle effort to every single syllable in a sentence. It sounds very steady, predictable.
Right, like a metronome.
Exactly. English, however, operates on a stress-timed rhythm. We selectively stretch out the content words, the nouns, the primary verbs, the really critical data points, and then we aggressively crush down the function words.
Function words being like pronouns, articles, prepositions.
Exactly.
So if a speaker whose facial muscles are hardwired for a syllable-timed language tries to speak English quickly, they end up applying equal muscular weight to every single syllable, just at a very high speed.
Which is where things go wrong.
Right, because our sources describe the result of this as a machine gun rhythm. It comes out sounding heavy and incredibly difficult for a native English speaker's brain to follow.
Because the listener doesn't know what's important. To break that machine gun rhythm, you have to fundamentally change your mouth's default posture.
How do we do that?
Out of the 45 distinct sounds of General British English, mapped by Pronunciation Studio, there is one vowel that does all the heavy lifting for this stress-timed rhythm. It's the schwa.
The schwa. It sounds like a martial arts move or something, but it's basically that lazy, non-committal sound, right?
That's the one. It is the sound of absolute muscular neutrality. To produce the schwa, your tongue just rests right in the center of your mouth. Your lips are totally relaxed, not rounded or stretched.
So it takes zero effort.
Almost 0 calories of muscular effort. Because English relies on stressing important words, we use the schwa to literally squeeze all the unimportant grammar words into the tiny spaces between the beats.
Give me an example of that.
Sure. The phrase for a doesn't get fully articulated. The jaw goes slack, and it just becomes the schwa-heavy frr.
Okay, let's unpack this, because there seems to be a bit of a contradiction here.
Cowso.
If we are intentionally crushing down our grammar words and turning them into lazy schwa sounds, doesn't that inherently ruin our speaking clarity and authority? Like, if I'm presenting to my boss, shouldn't I be articulating every single syllable?
It seems like you should, but no.
Ah.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, clarity in English actually relies entirely on this contrast.
Contrast between the stretched and crushed words.
Yes. Imagine a topographic map of a mountain range. Without the quiet, low-elevation valleys, the high peaks don't even exist. You just have a flat, elevated plateau.
Oh, I see.
The schwa provides those phonetic valleys. It creates the necessary empty auditory space that allows your stressed content words to punch through with massive authority.
So if you over-articulate every single word like a peak, the listener's brain gets overwhelmed.
Exactly. They have no idea what the core message is.
So if the schwa creates these low valleys of relaxed muscle effort, what actually happens when we speed up? If our jaw is purposefully relaxed for half the sentence, do those words just start, like, crashing into each other?
They absolutely do. They melt together into entirely new phonetic shapes. Linguists call this connected speech.
Connected.
Yes. When you're speaking at a conversational pace, it isn't just a faster version of reading individual words off a page. The sources outline the big 4 patterns of connected speech: linking, reductions, assimilation, and elision.
Okay, linking and reductions make total sense. Linking is just bridging the end of one word to the next, and reductions give us things like going to, shrinking down to gonna.
Very common.
But assimilation is wild to me. That's when a sound literally changes its identity to become more like its neighbor. The classic example in the manuals is the word handbag.
Handbag is the perfect example. Let's look at the mechanical why behind that. When you say handbag, your brain knows that the B in bag requires your lips to firmly close. Because your mouth wants to be efficient, your lips start closing prematurely while you're still trying to pronounce the N and the D from hand.
So you're planning ahead.
Exactly. By closing your lips early, you accidentally force the air through your nose, creating an M sound. So notice speakers don't usually say handbag, they say handbag.
Handbag! That is pure biological laziness masquerading as fluency.
It really is.
Yeah.
And then there's a lesion where sounds are just deleted entirely, like dropping the T in next week. So that sounds like next week.
The tongue just decides it doesn't have time to tap the roof of the mouth for the T, so it skips it.
Mastering these 4 patterns is crucial because it dramatically improves your listening comprehension. But also, incorporating them makes your own speech rhythm sound infinitely more natural.
I do see a pitfall here, though, the danger of context.
Oh, definitely.
Because if I get too comfortable dropping consonants and reducing my vowels to sound conversational with my team, I'd be terrified I'll accidentally carry that habit into a formal setting.
Yeah, over-reducing in a formal context is a huge risk. Using gonna or wanna is great for casual chat, but when you're presenting high-stakes data, like specific numbers, client names, legal terms, you have to use fuller forms.
Otherwise, you invite real-world confusion.
Potentially very expensive confusion.
Right. So if we are in a high-stakes environment where we need those sharp, full forms, but our biological adrenaline is pushing us to rush and compress our vowels, how do we physically override that panic?
You have to deploy tactical pacing. The single most powerful tool for projecting authority is the tactical pause.
The tactical pause.
Yes. Inserting just a 0.5-second pause between your thought groups achieves 2 critical things. First, it gives your audience the crucial microseconds their brains need to process the dense data you just delivered.
And second,
It instantly projects immense executive presence. It signals that you are totally comfortable holding the room's attention in silence. Clarity is ultimately the result of control, not velocity.
I love that. Clarity is control. But what about the fear of freezing up? Like, if you're put on the spot in a meeting, a long pause doesn't look like executive presence. It looks like sheer panic.
That's true. If your mind goes blank, you bridge the gap with stalling phrases.
Stalling phrases like, that's a good question, let me think.
Exactly. Instead of dead silence or a panicked, you use a fully formed phrase. It keeps your articulators moving. It buys your brain 3 to 4 seconds to dig into your cognitive reserves without losing your fluid rhythm.
It all comes back to treating the mouth like an instrument you can consciously direct.
Precisely.
So how do we build this physical control before we ever step into the boardroom? Let's dive into the articulation training regimen.
This is the practical part. According to Professor Alex's 2026 research, the fastest way to rewire this muscle memory is by visualizing the unseen mechanics of the mouth.
Visualizing sound.
Yes, utilizing his 2D sound motion technology. You see, most pronunciation training relies entirely on auditory mimicry. You hear a sound and try to guess what the speaker's tongue is doing behind closed lips.
Which is incredibly frustrating. You're basically throwing darts in the dark.
It's terribly inefficient. But imagine looking at a 2D cross-section of a human head on a screen. As a sound is played, a glowing line traces the exact physical path the tongue takes.
Oh, wow.
It shows where it taps the roof of the mouth, how the jaw drops, where the airflow is restricted. The data shows that when students can literally see the required physical movement, they master difficult sounds 3.5 times faster.
3.5 times. That is a massive shortcut. It turns abstract pronunciation into a simple anatomical instruction manual.
Exactly.
But even if you don't have access to high-tech software, the sources outline an analog training regimen you can start immediately, and it starts with a physical warm-up.
The warm-up is non-negotiable.
Right, like you wouldn't attempt a heavy deadlift without stretching. You detail the physical warm-up in the sources. Doing the AEO drill to exaggerate the stretch of the lips, physically massaging the master muscles in the jaw.
Which is so important because professionals carry immense stress in their jaws, which acts like a cage restricting clear vowels.
Right, and then stretching the tongue with tongue circles. But here's where it gets really interesting. The sources recommend an old theater actor's trick, the wine cork exercise.
Ah, yes, the cork exercise.
It's so funny, but incredibly practical. You take a standard wine cork or a clean plastic bottle cap and hold it gently between your front teeth. And then you try to read a complex text out loud.
It's basically progressive overload for your face.
Treating your face like you're taking it to the gym.
That's exactly what it is. Because the cork physically locks the jaw open, your lips and your tongue have to work twice as hard to form the consonants. You're adding physical resistance to the act of speaking.
And when you take it out,
when you finally remove the cork and read the same paragraph again, the resistance is gone. Suddenly, your normal speech feels incredibly light, crisp, and effortless.
you also have to pair that physical muscle training with ear training through minimal pairs.
Yes. A minimal pair is simply 2 words that are identical in every way except for one single phone, like bat versus bad, or chip versus cheap.
So why is isolating that single sound so important?
Because of auditory discrimination, if your ear cannot clearly hear the micro difference between a short I and a long E, your brain cannot send the correct signal to your jaw to produce the difference.
So you calibrate the ear first,
Exactly.
and once your ear is calibrated and your muscles are warmed up, you move to the ultimate integration drill, shadowing.
Shadowing is fantastic.
You take a 10-second audio clip of a native speaker, and you speak along with them simultaneously without stopping, mimicking their pitch, their pauses, and their stress-timed rhythm.
But the required protocol for shadowing is crucial. It has to be. Slow, smooth, fast. You start by artificially slowing the audio down.
To prioritize accuracy over speed.
Yes, you only increase the speed once the physical transitions feel completely smooth. What's fascinating here is how the brain adapts this regimen. Consistency is key.
Right, because you might think you need to block out an entire Saturday to master this.
But you don't. Doing just 15 minutes of these micro drills every single day fundamentally beats a 2-hour marathon session on the weekend.
Because it prevents the jaw from reverting to old habits while you sleep.
Exactly. Short, intense daily practice forces the brain to rebuild those neural pathways until clear articulation becomes your new default posture.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's look at the ultimate takeaway for you, the listener. Speaking clarity in a professional environment is not some elusive genetic talent. It is a trainable physical habit.
It really is. By slowing down, avoiding vowel compression, embracing English's stress-timed rhythm, and doing daily mouth warm-ups, you can completely eliminate listener fatigue.
And when you remove the barrier of poor articulation, people finally stop asking, "What did you say?" And they start focusing entirely on the brilliance of what you are saying. You can command any room.
You step into this space not just as a participant, but as a leader, simply because you have taken control of your physical instrument.
It is an incredibly empowering shift. But I want to leave you with a final, slightly mind-bending thought to ponder today. We have spent this whole deep dive talking about how to intentionally manipulate our mouths to shape a language.
Right.
But it makes you wonder, over a lifetime, how much does the specific language we speak physically shape the actual bone structure of our faces and the way we breathe?
That's a fascinating question.
We think we are just speaking, but our words might literally be molding us. Treat your voice like the biological instrument it is. Master the mechanics, find your rhythm, and command the room. Until next time, keep diving deep.